Hi Abby, how you going?
I'm well. How about yourself, Dave?
I'm really, really well. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat to us today.
Of course.
Now, I've had the privilege to sit down and watch Breaking, and this is an absolutely amazing movie, so congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So tell us a little bit about where this journey with this film started for you. It's based on a true story. Where did that journey start for you as especially as a writer on this project?
I read Aaron Gell's article about Brian Brown Easley, and there's some things that you can't turn aside from. This was one of them. My heart was broken by Brian's story. It immediately brought to mind my dad, who's a veteran, a Navy veteran who has Agent Orange and hasn't received all of his help from the Veterans Affairs that is necessary.
Did that make it tough for you to write this screenplay because it was so personal, or did that actually make it easier?
It ebbs and flowed, or it ebbed and flowed. In parts, it was definitely hard to mind things, but also as a writer, as a director, you're in the service of something beyond you. It's not just about you. So for me, there's a separation there that happens when I realize, okay, I'm here for my team. I'm here for this story. I'm here for the other veterans who haven't been heard, for the other people that are feeling like they're trapped in a machine and can't find a voice in that broken system, just feel like a cog in that machine.
Definitely. As a writer, I guess there's been a lot of screenwriters who listen to this show. As a writer writing on something that actually happened, on a real event, does that change how you approach the project at all, or does that not change anything at all for you as a screenwriter?
It certainly does. I'm not a documentary filmmaker. I very much appreciate and value them, but if I told you the event exactly as it was of the day, I wouldn't be getting to the most powerful, emotive version of the story. We did do our best to honor the film, and Brian, the man, um, talking with his wife, making sure that we told his story through the lens of love, that it was intended um, to be retold through. We
That
approached it very carefully.
Yeah, that must have been a pretty emotional time sitting down and talking to his wife. Tell us a little bit about what that was like and what you learnt from talking to his wife as well.
I learned that she loved him deeply. I learned that he would walk all over the city just to think. So that informed how we start the film. Brian's walking in the beginning. He was alone a lot. He loved to read. We learned about him as a man. We learned about his patterns, his life.
Yeah. John was amazing in this film. How difficult was it to cast Brian? Like, knowing the character so well, talking to his wife and things like that, you would have known this character like a brother almost. How difficult was it to cast that role, and how did you go about casting it?
We were really fortunate in that John is just an extraordinary actor. He came to mind immediately. He wasn't available. So went out to Jonathan Majors. He jumped on, but then his schedule switched. And then we jumped straight into back to John and said, John, the timeline switched. It's COVID. Everybody's timeline's changing. Please tell me something else has changed for you. And he just finished up another project, had some family stuff, and then he jumped into this.
Filming during COVID as well, what kind of pressure did that put on you? Because I know that changed a lot of things for a lot of people, especially on set. How did that affect how you went about approaching this film?
Really fortunately, our actors in the circumstances of the film are separated. Brian's separated from Estelle, and from Rosa, right? So the girls are kind of together, and he's kind of together, and Bernard's kind of together. So without the ability to really have in-person rehearsals due to COVID and scheduling, we used it to our advantage.
Yep.
And we did our best to keep those silos and then just really keep it alive on set and make it feel almost like a stage play.
I was going to say that it feels like a play at times when you're watching the film. It's so intense. Tell us a little bit about what the shoot was like and what it was like on set, because it comes across as a really, really intense shoot.
It was. But at the same time, I did my best so much of the job as a director is to create space for your team to do their best work, right?
Yeah.
And knowing that the actors I have are just extraordinary talents and have refined their skills to such a high level, my job is to put them in a position of success, right?
Yep.
So much what I did with the crew was trying to craft the setup in a way that I could keep most of the crew offset. And still allow the craftspersons and to do their jobs. My department heads were really, really tuned in to that need to create space for the actors to interact with each other. And then because of that, because we're creating space for that, which is not normal, the actors are able to really feel like it's just the three of them in that space. And then they can move around knowing the constraints of what we have, because everybody's prepared. Okay, you're in this space, you can move around in this space. That means I need to have this space lit and shadowed so that you're not falling off into a non-filmable position, right?
Yeah. We mentioned John's performance before. What was he like on set? Because to me, that's the kind of performance that deserves to win awards. What was he like on set, getting into character?
John was really able to jump in, focus, be in it, leave, release, come back, do the same thing again. Extremely focused. But also, like, John's a fun guy. So when he's able to really unleash that pressure, he just honors the crew and the team and is all about the work, which under the demands of the schedule, I'm really grateful that was the case.
As a director, did you have to look out for him as well? Like, it seems that he took so much on with this role, and like, was there an emotional stress there for him as well? Like, as a director, did you have to work with him and make sure that he was okay as well?
It was top of mind. It's definitely something that you have to care for the mental health of your actors because they're in such a vulnerable state, right?
Yeah.
John is also aware. He's a very finely tuned instrument, right? And he knows what he needs. So he stayed in a house with friends so that when he got back home, he could set Brian aside, right? And unleash that pressure on just let the cap off a little bit. And then come back and tune in again. And he did it so well, so beautifully. But yeah, you do have to be careful and look after your actors. Each actor is so different. Some actors know what they need, some don't.
Yeah.
And you do your best to have open conversations about, hey, like, what is working for you? How's your head? How's your soul? How's your spirit?
You mentioned before that John was your first choice for that role. How did you go about casting around him? Did you already have an idea of who else you wanted in the film, or did you go through the complete casting process for the other roles?
We did have a slightly different cast in the iteration with Jonathan Majors, and then once it became clear it was going to be John, I also felt like Nikki Bahari was the first choice. I really have my first choice for every actor in this role, in this film.
Yep.
Very, very grateful. But you have to build around your lead. Otherwise, the film doesn't feel cohesive.
Yeah. I wanted to bring it back to the screenwriting as well with that process, because there was something about this film that really stood out to me, and that is that Brian is such an interesting character, but a lot of people might watch this film and think, a bank robbery is done by a bad person. How important was that to you to make Brian a character that is pushed to the limit and doing something that he would never normally do, and make him likable to the audience? Just because, I find that really interesting that you have a character doing what would normally be portrayed as a bad thing, but he's doing it for a reason. How difficult was that to get that into the screenplay and still make him a likable character for the audience?
Sometimes we're faced with two bad choices in life. Often that's the case, that we don't have an easy solution or easy way out.
Yep.
So for me, showcasing the circumstances and the empathy and understanding that Brian understood.
Yeah, yep.
That this was going to affect Rosa, that this was going to affect Estelle, that you could see the, I'm sorry, I'm not going to hurt you, I'm not going to touch you. The shame on his face of understanding that this is a noble man pushed beyond his brink, beyond his breaking point. That this is really the point of no return for him.
Yep.
It's dignity or death.
You mentioned talking with his family as you were writing the film. Have they had a chance to see the film, and what were their thoughts on the film after they watched it?
Yeah, before we ever screened it for a public audience, we screened it to Brian's wife, who was a consultant on the film. And we sat there for about 10 minutes after she'd watched it. She's talking to John, she's talking to Kwame, my co-writer, and myself. And we're holding our breath. We just don't want to know. And finally, just ask her family style, like, what do you think? And she looks at John and says, that was Brian. Now it's not just going to be myself and my daughter remembering him on Christmas and his birthday.
Yep.
And that was one of, that meant a lot. It meant a lot to us.
Yeah. Abby, what would you like audiences to take away from this film after they've watched it? Because I think we're just starting to realize here in Australia the effect that war has had on some of our soldiers over the years as well. We have a very famous song here in Australia called I Was Only 19, sorry. And that was all about a soldier going off to war, having heard all the stories about how heroic war is. And then he arrives in the Vietnam War and finds out what hell it really is. And I think people are starting to realize what that song actually means now. So what would you like people to take away from this film after they've watched it?
This film's really about how we treat one another, how we can do better to support each other. Brian's asking for the fundamental right of human dignity. It should be granted to each person, veteran or not. So really, what I would like audiences to take away is what Brian says to his daughter: do right by people. That's it. If you do right by your fellow man, that starts to repair a broken system or rebuild a new one.
Definitely. Well, Abby, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. I know this is a film that a lot of people are going to reflect on after they've watched it, so it was great to be able to chat to you and see what an impact the film has had on your life as well. So thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks, Dave. Pleasure to meet you.